I'm one of the therapists here on campus, so I work in the counseling services office. We offer services on all of the 5 campuses. I'm generally here and at Warner Robins, and then we have someone who covers Cochrane, Dublin, and Eastman. So no matter where you are, you can get an appointment with us. We do mental health counseling for students. It's free of charge as long as you're taking at least 4 hours. And it's a valuable service that I think, I've been here for 10 years. This is my 10th year here. I'm working on 11th year, I guess. And it's, over the years, I've seen students change as everything kind of changed. We're 2017. I started in 2007. College students have changed their mechanism, especially with social media coming into the picture in a strong way, and just the way you all communicate with each other. And counseling services is one of those places that you can come and have a safe space to talk about things that are going on during your college years that help you kind of stay on track in the classroom. It's a place where you can come and discuss those things with someone that can give you space to really figure some things out, because these are important years while you all are here.
Please go ahead.
I'm Heather Ness. I'm a professor here. I'm a lecturer in the psychology department. My background is in clinical psychology, so diagnosis and treatment of mental disorders. Something that really interested me just for research purposes is how does various different types of media influence how we think. And sometimes, in our society we have like this idea, that fiction is fiction. And then we have the other idea where, video games make mass shooters. So which is it? And that's something that I'm kind of interested in, and why I was kind of interested in talking. So getting your ideas, first of all, it was great hearing about book club. What did you get from it? When I talked, I haven't read the book with some of you guys. I haven't seen the show either, so I did a Google search. But also from hearing your ideas, just talking about so if you do watch this, how will it affect you? Will it affect you at all? It's kind of where I'm going at with this.
My name is Ellie Wall. I'm a board-certified music therapist. I've been working in the field of mental health now for coming up on 13 years. Started with the Georgia Department of Corrections when we moved to Georgia, working with inmates that have mental health disorders. But for the last 3 years, I've been working in the acute psychiatric facility at Navison Health, so the psychiatric ward in the hospital here, which basically means, we're the MASH unit. We are the folks that, if someone is imminently suicidal or they have actually attempted suicide, then they come see us. So there's never a dull moment. I hesitate to say that, you've seen or heard it all. Because every time I say that, then something absolutely, completely, totally unexpected and out of left field happens. But for my part of it, I do pretty much anything that any therapist can do, but I use music as a medium. So, like you were saying, that comfortable spot, that easy place to get into those things that are troubling you here. I use a lot of music to tease those things out. I rarely, in the work that I do, and I say this for more shock value than anything when I'm speaking with a group of people that I know have issues dealing with depression and suicide, and that is, in all my years of doing this, never once have I spoken with someone who is suicidal. Does that make sense?
One of the number one things that I've seen of just the most importance is, what is their support system? That's one of the first things that we like to come and talk to them about. Like, who are the 3 people you can call right now if you need something? Who's here to help you cope with the things that are going on? Some of our college students that are here, their parents aren't the best people. Maybe this is a place for them that's safer than at home. There could be relationships and things that they're experiencing that put them in a place that makes them look for help. And from what I've seen from our students, if one of them needs help, you all respond to that, which I'm very proud of this college, because it's not always that way. But I think that there are ways that people communicate things, but I also have students who have come in after a friend has died by suicide, and they've made those comments like, what if I would have responded to this? What if I would have said something? I could have stopped them. I know I could have. And from what we see, somebody who has made up their mind to do this, there's not a way to end or stop them unless they explicitly come out and say this to you. I always tell people, look for changes. If you know that person, look for anything that's changed.
They're kind of like, if they give away things that are important to them, then that could be something that could be signaling, or paying attention to their language. Like they're not making plans, even in the near future. And not to say that as in, I know that this friend is depressed, but they're talking about things next semester, so they should be fine. But it could be an extra warning sign if they aren't making plans.
He gets these tapes from a girl, and she goes through like what had happened before she killed herself. But we also said we don't think that there's actual reasons. Like the title's sort of a misnomer in a lot of ways, and that. But that it does seem that was sort of our consensus anyway. It does seem more for survivors than for. Although I don't know. I mean, so many.
It depends on the population, I think, as well. Because I watched my 14-year-old daughter wanted to watch it. All of her friends have seen it, and kids younger than her even. Because when it came out, all of the middle school read the book and watched the series because it was, popular right then. And I think that, I told her she could watch it if she had a conversation with me, and she was like, well, duh, that's always the way.
Angela, you just said you've seen the show, and this is a thing we talked about earlier. One of the main criticisms of the show in the book is that it glorifies suicide. And Dr. Trayer said that in the book, no one knows really how Hannah died. But one of the main criticisms of the show, particularly from suicide experts, is they explicitly show her kill herself. She sits in a bathtub full of water and slits her wrist. But experts were really against the idea of showing the scene explicitly. And I was wondering if you had any opinions on that and why or why not.
I mean, the only opinion I had on it was that someone who maybe had been touched by this or had had thoughts of those kind of things, to see a visual of that is a very powerful image. They included it, I feel like, for dramatic effect in some way. I think it's referred to in the book, but I don't think it's actually, I don't know if that scene plays out. I can't remember.
They actually say in the text they have no idea how she died. It was all rumors, but yeah.
Maybe that's why I got that idea. It was for dramatic effect. But I have had students when it first came out that were my regular, would come in for counseling once a week, and some of them brought that up, that they didn't need to see that image because they specifically knew of friends maybe who were cutters, not necessarily to kill themselves, but just because it was a way and it scared them in that respect.
I feel like this is kind of where you're going, but from the people that I talked to, I don't think that anyone was going to be, okay, well, I've seen this now, so it's okay to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I think it could be, from a traumatic point of view, I think it could be very damaging for someone to see something like that. But I don't think, in my personal and professional opinion, that anyone's going to watch that show, see that image, and go, okay, now I'm good.
Okay, tell us.
Okay, so like I had a number of different thoughts, and coming from a place where I had heard about the book and obviously I'd heard about the show, but I hadn't watched or read either one, and really not wanting to because I just didn't need that image in my head.
Me too.
But things that just from research that I've read, how might watching the show differ from the book? So what I think with the show is that maybe it does, maybe not necessarily glorify suicide or mental illness, but maybe this idea of, and this is kind of a common thing with teenagers who aren't actually suicidal, but they have this thought, they're getting bullied. Well, if I die and leave this note, that'll show them, and they'll all feel awful about themselves. And it's a fantasy, and they don't actually carry it out. But I do wonder if Hannah is seen as somewhat of a hero, at least in the show, what that might do. Even if it doesn't cause people to carry it out more so. How do we think about suicide, and how do we talk about suicide? And do we take it as seriously then if someone comes to us and say, I have had thoughts of killing myself, or people would be better off without me? If you think of Hannah as a hero, then do you help your friend out as much? That's kind of my consideration. But you will in a second. But I started to think about what kind of media or story shows somebody helping out somebody else who is suicidal and doing it well and helping that person get help. So a more positive thing. And the only thing that I could think of, and please don't think that I'm not taking this subject seriously, but it was a comic book. It was a Deadpool comic book, if you're at all familiar with Deadpool. And I printed it out quite illegally for you guys to look at it. It's not the entire thing, and it's for educational purposes, so I'm sure I'm actually covered. But in this issue, and like I said, I cut out some parts of it. It starts where there's this girl on Deadpool's roof building, and she's about to jump. And we don't find out at all what brought her there, or what the problems are, or anything. He briefly asked her, hey, is this something that violence can solve because I'm a guy? But we don't find out her reasons, or who has harmed her, or whatever. We just know she is suicidal. And he does, for being an anti-hero, if you know anything about Deadpool, he does several things really well, actually. He never leaves her once he is in this situation. He stays by her side. He uses humor, which, you know, some people will react to a little bit differently. But he gets her talking. And even when there's some parts where, you know, he sits down with her and he tries to ask her her name, and she kind of responds kind of hostilely. She's angry. But that doesn't turn him off. He has some patience with her, and he sticks with her, even though she's, you know, telling him to get lost. He ignores that and is still trying. Some understanding, some patience. And then he even, you know, maybe some people would take this patronizingly, but he says to her at one point, you know, I'll make you an offer. If you're determined that this is going to be your last night on Earth, what do you want to do? Have you seen Hamilton yet? He takes her to go see Hamilton. And on one hand, he's joking that she wants to kill herself, but on the other hand, he's getting her out of that situation, and he's getting her doing something enjoyable. And so he goes through it, but the best part is, and I cut out, you know, he takes her along while he beats up some bad guys. But at the end of it, they steal a motorcycle. In the entire time throughout the night, he is texting the emergency room. And he's letting them know what the situation is and to prepare. And at the end of the night, that's where he drops her off. And he's able to admit, I'm not the guy who's going to help you. So he has this he recognizes to hook her up with someone who can actually help. And even though she's gotten angry, and I've thought about if we can do this, like sometimes, you know, our friends will tell us, I'm thinking back to, well, life now, but teenage years as well, your friend is hurting and is saying these things, do you tell their parents? You tell their parents, they're going to be fairly well pissed off at you. And that is something that we do think about. But it's better that they're mad at you, right, than if they've done something. So even though, like, whatever, she might have reacted whatever way, she might not have even gone in, but he asked her to go in. He still gives her that autonomy, and he connects her with the right resources. So I thought it was good. He actually does something right, and something for us to look to, but, well, what should we do in this situation?
Limit. We don't expect you to sit with them and make sure, you know, their hands are tied behind their back or something so they can't do anything. That's going way too far. But being a supportive friend, that's a good thing.
Well, we are unfortunately out of time, but I know you have handouts for some people if they're interested. And thank you so much to our panelists. I think you guys answered all the questions we wanted.